Tonight, the new flood threat for millions of Americans after deadly storms slammed the East Coast. Torrential rain submerging streets in New Jersey. Video from inside a business capturing the rushing waters. Drivers trapped in their cars. New York City's subway system completely overwhelmed. Passengers soaked. The area is at risk at this hour, and the chance is now increasing for tropical development in the Gulf. We're tracking it all. Also developing tonight, House Speaker Mike Johnson breaking with President Trump, calling for the Epstein files to be released. The growing pressure on Attorney General Pam Bondi. Beyoncé fans hospitalized in a stampede after her Cowboy Carter show. And you'll hear the panic 911 call after thieves stole the superstar's unreleased music and tour plans. The dramatic confrontation on a popular L.A. hiking trail. Hikers chasing down a suspected arsonist moments after they say he set a brush fire. What happened next? Burning boat rescue video capturing this vessel engulfed in flames. A father and son jumping in to save a family just in time. The number of kids on weight loss drugs is skyrocketing. So how young is too young to be on the medication? Top story starts right now. And good evening. Tonight, new flood threats as we come on the air after unrelenting summer storms unleashed disastrous and deadly flooding. New video, here it is, showing the terrifying situation unfolding in North Plainfield, New Jersey. Look at that. The street quickly turning into a gushing river. Another vantage point, look how terrifying this is, from inside this business, showing just how fast that water rose. Last night's rush hour commute, a nightmare situation for drivers, and here's why. Highways quickly submerged, leaving many trapped. Some had to be rescued using massive construction front loaders, the equipment scooping people up to bring them to higher ground. And New York City stunned after torrential rains inundated subways. Passengers in awe as waters overwhelmed the station. You can see people trying to make it out of the subway. This is what they were met with. Waterfall over the steps, some even slipping. Even a movie theater was hit hard. Look, intense rain slamming right into the concession stand. And the threat is not over tonight. 22 million Americans are at risk for floods all across the country, including the Gulf Coast, now bracing for a potential tropical storm. NBC meteorologist Violeta Yas standing by with the latest. But first, we start with NBC's Aaron McLaughlin in the storm zone.
We got rescue over here.
Tonight, throughout the Northeast, recovering from this. Yesterday evening, more than 2.5 inches of rain fell on New York City. Video shows water pouring into parts of the subway system. Passengers stunned.
That is seriously high.
And in nearby Plainfield, New Jersey, 2 people were killed when their car was swept away. Rescue crews unable to reach them in time. First responders managed to save Francis Elgert, who tells us he ignored the flood warnings and during his drive home found himself surrounded by floodwater.
Were you worried you were going to drown?
A little bit. I started realizing I'm at risk here. You know, there's water coming at me.
Not far away, Nancy Drews looked out her front window and saw this. Complete chaos. A container full of desks and supplies from the high school more than a mile away, crashing through her neighbor's brand new fence.
It was waves. It was like an ocean.
This isn't the first time her neighbor, Alexandra Esparza, has had to deal with flash flooding. It happened to her back in 2021 when the remnants of Hurricane Ida struck New Jersey.
I don't know what we're going to do because this is happening more often.
We, New Jersey, we, America, we, the globe, we're getting dragged by climate.
Statistics show that for the last 55 years, the vast majority of the country has seen summer rainstorms intensify. As temperatures rise, the air can hold more water vapor, making the storms worse than ever. At this animal shelter in Plainfield, employees swam through the flooded streets to save the dogs. The animal's okay, but the shelter devastated.
We're a nonprofit organization, so we don't have a lot of money to begin with, so this sets us back a lot.
Aaron McLaughlin joins us now. Aaron, just over your shoulder there, we can see a home that has been destroyed. It's a bit of a mystery. It exploded during these floods?
That's right, Tom. Officials say that home exploded, and they still do not know why. The explosion so intense, they say the neighbors could feel it across the street. Firefighters were seen battling the flames, standing in 2 feet of floodwater. They say no one was home at the time, so no one was injured. Tom.
Aaron McLaughlin leading us off here. I do want to bring in NBC New York meteorologist Violeta Yas. Violeta, let's start with the flooding. Tens of millions of Americans tonight still under those flood watches all across the country. Tell our viewers the areas that you're watching tonight.
Yeah, well, one of the areas where we certainly don't need additional rain after the day we had yesterday is here across the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Taking a look at some of these 24-hour rainfall totals from New York City stretching down through Raleigh. You can see one of the bullseye areas here across parts of Virginia, more than 6 inches there in Petersburg. And unfortunately, this is one of the areas where we're seeing heavy showers and thunderstorms at this hour. You can see those drifting in and around the Roanoke area, Richmond extending down through just west of Raleigh. And these have already touched off numerous flood warnings there. So this is going to be an area of concern through the remainder of today. Richmond, Norfolk, up through D.C., extending down through Roanoke and Charlotte as well. I do want to head a little bit further south, where we're also tracking showers and thunderstorms here across parts of Texas, another area where we do not need additional rainfall. We know that, especially near the Kerrville area, under the gun for some flooding through the remainder of this evening. The good news here is the thunderstorms haven't been as concentrated as what I just showed you across parts of Virginia. You can see they're much more scattered. And as a matter of fact, they're already starting to drift to the north. So luckily, we're expecting the threat here to start to wind down once the sun sets, and we'll start to see improving conditions here across parts of Texas.
All right, Violeta, before you go, I also want to ask you about that possible tropical disturbance in the Gulf we've been watching this week. What's the latest?
Yeah, so we're still watching this, really, and not too much development through the course of today. I'm not thinking we'll get too many changes tonight either as this starts to move over land. So we've sort of run out of time for development tonight, but we're seeing that potential. Here are some of those potential tracks. You can see this potentially moving due west across the Florida Panhandle, approaching parts of Louisiana, including New Orleans long term. Now, this track would take this a little bit further over land, which would hamper development. But if this were to track a little further south into the northern Gulf for a more extended period of time, unfortunately, that would mean, of course, a better chance for intensification. Regardless, though, we're already seeing heavy showers and thunderstorms here north of Tampa, just west of Gainesville as well. Heavy storms near Panama City, and already a flood watch in effect there across parts of Louisiana, well out ahead of this. So for tomorrow, we'll continue to see those disorganized showers and thunderstorms from the Florida Panhandle extending out through parts of Louisiana, again, including New Orleans. So this is going to be a threat. We'll see that flooding potentially develop right into Thursday, when this could develop into depression or eventually even a tropical storm. So as that week progresses, we'll see those heavier downpours start to shift from Florida into the remainder of the Gulf states on the order of 1 to 3 inches. But as we know, in those heavier downpours, we could see anywhere from 7 to 10 inches. So flooding is definitely going to be the biggest concern here, regardless of intensification.
And then, Violeta, while we have you here, I do want to ask you about the wildfires still raging around the Grand Canyon. We had Steve Patterson there earlier this week. From this view, you can see the cloud of smoke hanging over the canyon. It comes as wildfires in Canada are causing smoky conditions there as well. Parts of the upper Midwest and New England, this footage showing the Toronto skyline shrouded in a dense haze. That's pretty impressive. Walk us through the air quality concerns here and when fresher air might be on the way for the Midwest and New England.
Yeah, so you can actually see that fire sort of drifting from the Four Corners across the plains. But we also, as you mentioned, have the issue of the Canadian wildfires. Manitoba's having one of the worst wildfire seasons in the last 30 years or so. So, of course, we start to get some of that drifting down in through parts of the Midwest and the Great Lakes. So we're seeing that air quality deteriorate here across parts of Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin, and even down in through areas like Chicago and out through parts of Michigan as well. So we're seeing that air quality deteriorate today, but we are expecting a little bit of improvement. I'm thinking especially for areas to the west, we'll see improvement as we head into tomorrow, but we may still be dealing with some of these air quality alerts as we head into tomorrow for areas further to the east.
Okay, Violeta, we thank you for that. We want to turn to Washington now in politics, where the Trump administration is under pressure to release more documents in connection to Jeffrey Epstein. The growing frustrations coming from within Trump's own MAGA base. Here's NBC's Kelly O'Donnell with the details.
New tonight, the MAGA movement's push for public disclosure of the Justice Department's files on notorious sex offender Jeffrey Epstein now includes a high-profile Trump ally.
I'm for transparency.
House Speaker Mike Johnson.
It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it.
A push for damage control from the president's own daughter-in-law, Lara Trump.
I do think that there needs to be more transparency on this, and I think that will happen.
Earlier today, Attorney General Pam Bondi tried to deflect Epstein questions.
Nothing about Epstein. I'm not going to talk about Epstein.
Reporters pressed her on new comments today from President Trump, suggesting Bondi consider opening some files.
She's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release.
The president said today you would release credible files related to Mr. Epstein. Are you prepared to do that, and when would you do it?
Our memo speaks for itself, and we'll get back to you on anything else.
That DOJ memo said it found no incriminating client list, no credible evidence of blackmail, and therefore no further disclosure. That stunned some Trump supporters because she had said this in February when asked about a client list.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Then her push to clarify.
My response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
The controversy lit a political wildfire in MAGA world.
Make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
Kelly O'Donnell joins us tonight from the White House. Kelly, I'm going to use your own words there, a political wildfire. You know, some viewers may be confused. Since the election, nearly all the Republicans that have been elected, and of course the Trumps have always stood by President Trump. This seems to be, both Lara Trump and then Speaker Johnson basically saying what a lot of, Republican voters want for the Epstein files to be released, while President Trump is sort of trying to tamp this down. So why is there a mixed message there?
Well, it's interesting, Tom. Just a short time ago, the president has just returned to the White House. He spoke with reporters, and he was asked about why his supporters are so interested in the Epstein files. And he said he honestly doesn't understand it. He called it an old case. He doesn't know why they're so drawn to it. But he did say, repeating, but perhaps emphasizing more, something he said earlier that was in our piece, that anything credible, they should have it. To me, Tom, that sounds like the White House is opening that door for Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, to do more if she finds some material credible. Remember, some of what's believed to be in the files includes things that might be considered private witness material, some child pornography, which would not be made public. But is there anything credible? The president tonight says the people should have it.
All right, big new developments there and a lot of new reporting from Kelly. Kelly, we thank you for that. President Trump also addressing the status of his relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. aid to Ukraine, saying that Ukrainian President Zelensky should not target Moscow. This while adding that he is very disappointed with President Putin. NBC's Keir Simmons is in Moscow for us tonight and has the latest.
Tonight, 24 hours after announcing the U.S. will send Ukraine weapons paid for by NATO allies, President Trump warning they should not be used on Russia's capital.
Should Zelensky target Moscow or deeper into Russia?
No, he shouldn't target Moscow.
After the Financial Times reported President Trump, on a July 4th telephone call, asked the Ukrainian leader if he could strike inside Russia, citing people briefed on the discussions, who said Trump asked, Vladimir, can you hit Moscow? Can you hit St. Petersburg too? The White House disputing the report, saying President Trump was merely asking a question, not encouraging further killing. Outside the Kremlin today, Russians responding with defiance.
Does it scare you?
No.
Why not? Why it should scare me?
I believe in peace between Russia and America.
Kyiv and many Ukrainian cities have been bombarded by Russia, often with missiles, while Ukraine has mostly used drones like this strike today for its attacks inside Russia. President Trump has threatened punishing tariffs on Russia and its trading partners if President Putin does not agree to a peace deal in 50 days.
I've been very disappointed with President Putin. I've solved a lot of wars in the last 3 months, but I haven't gotten this one yet.
Today, we met Alexander, who cuts keys and repairs shoes for a living. He says business has improved. We don't give a damn about Trump, he told us.
Keir joins us tonight from Moscow. Keir, has the Russian government responded to President Trump's comments and the additional aid that the U.S. has provided for Ukraine? I mean, because we really can't say this enough. This is a sudden turn for President Trump, who thought he could make peace between Ukraine and Russia and had spoke, in somewhat favorable terms of Vladimir Putin. Not anymore.
That's right, Tom. It's surreal to be here in Moscow watching what seems to have been a friendship between President Trump
and President Putin kind of unravel before our eyes. The Kremlin tonight saying that it won't rush to a statement. There may be a statement from President Putin himself, but that they do take it very seriously. President Putin, of course, as you know, Tom, is not a man who easily yields to pressure. But, Tom, this is why this is such high-stakes brinkmanship. Think about this. If President Trump does have to impose economic penalties, not just on Russia, but on other trading partners like India and China, it is then dependent on what President Putin does here in Moscow as to whether it can remove those sanctions against countries like India and China. This really is brinkmanship, Tom.
Keir Simmons for us reporting from Moscow. Keir, your team stay safe out there. A shocking story back here at home out of Los Angeles. A longtime American Idol music supervisor and her husband reportedly found dead in their home with gunshot wounds in what police are calling a double homicide. The investigation now underway. NBC's Camila Bernal joins us live from Los Angeles. Camila, I know you have some new reporting, and there's been some major developments tonight.
That's right, Tom. Just moments ago, we're learning so many new details. Authorities saying they have now arrested Raymond Bubarian. He's a 22-year-old who was at the house last Thursday. That was on the 10th. And police say he was initially a burglary suspect. They don't know exactly how he got into that home, but it appears he was at the home when the couple came back to that house. There was a confrontation, and that's when the two were killed. Authorities confirming that it was Robin Kay and Thomas DeLuca who were killed that day in the neighborhood of Encino here in Los Angeles. They were both 70 years old, and like you mentioned, Kay was a longtime music supervisor with American Idol. Authorities learning really about all of this yesterday when there was a welfare check. They went to the house, found a trail of blood. They then went to the back of the house, worked their way into the house through the back glass door, and inside they found Robin Kay. She was in the pantry of the house. They found Thomas DeLuca, who was in the bathroom of the house. We learned from sources that both of them were shot in their upper body. We don't know very many other details, but again, it's just a tragic death, seeming to be a burglary gone wrong, according to our sources and to what the police is saying. And the person responsible is just 22 years old, Tom.
It's so sad. Camila, I do want to ask you, has American Idol responded in any way?
Yeah, they have. They released a statement saying that they are devastated to hear about the loss of Robin Kay. They said that she was part of the American Idol team since 2009. And in that statement, they said that she was loved and respected by so many people that worked on this show. This wasn't the only show that she worked on. She worked on a number of different TV shows, but really spent at least 15 seasons with American Idol. So people with that show just devastated to hear of this tragedy and to hear of their brutal deaths. Tom.
All right, Camila Bernal with a lot of new developments that have happened in that case. Yeah. We're following the start of the murder trial of that Colorado dentist accused of poisoning his wife after years of infidelity. Prosecutors citing a court document saying he searched online for how to make poison. Sam Brock explains how the defense plans to counter.
In a Colorado courtroom, prosecutors accused Dr. James Craig of poisoning his wife Angela's protein shakes in 2023 and said a motive, while not necessary, was there.
These money problems with other women. In this case, it is.
Craig pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder and a slew of other charges, his defense acknowledging the financial woes and saying his wife, a mother of 6, contributed to them, also revealing Craig's decades of extramarital relationships, but arguing that doesn't make someone guilty of murder.
You may not think he's a good husband, but that's not what you're here to decide. You're here to decide whether or not the prosecution has proven the elements.
Prosecutors pointed to a toxicology report that found acute cyanide, ingredients from over-the-counter eye drops, and arsenic in Angela's autopsy, with an affidavit laying out Craig's purchase of arsenic on Amazon and his online searches. How many grams of pure arsenic will kill a human? And is arsenic detectable in autopsy? The court document also alleging he searched YouTube around that time for top 5 undetectable poisons that show no signs of foul play and how to make poison.
How important do you think the digital evidence in this case is going to be?
The most important. It's going to come down to this narrative, which is told with the digital evidence, which is irrefutable.
Prosecutors say while Angela received hospital treatment over a 10-day stretch, Craig ordered cyanide to his office and then visited her.
He went in that room to murder.
The defense countering the evidence is all circumstantial in a case sure to spark strong emotions beyond Colorado.
Sam Brock joins us now live on set. So, Sam, you know, we heard about the internet searches there that seem pretty damning. The defense says that's circumstantial. What do the legal experts that you talk to say?
Yeah, they say it's an uphill battle. Namely, this is really interesting.
Uphill battle for who?
Uphill battle for the defense.
For the defense, yeah.
Because defense is not contesting the fact, Tom, that he ordered cyanide and arsenic. They are not contesting these really explicit searches that we just went through. What they're trying to argue is that his wife, Angela, was broken. One of the other charges that Craig is facing is solicitation of perjury, trying to convince women to testify that his wife potentially had suicidal ideation. He has pleaded not guilty to that. But you could see the groundwork potentially being laid for trying to argue that his wife was having a difficult time and that maybe that's how these poisons were ingested. Don't know yet, but we're going to find out in the weeks to come.
A lot of layers to this story.
Yeah.
Solicitation of perjury. I hadn't even heard of that. All right, Sam, we thank you for that. We're back in a moment with concert chaos, the stampede after Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter show in Atlanta. Yeah, these images right here, sending several Beehive fans to the hospital. Plus the 911 call reporting the theft of her unreleased music and concert plans we told you about last night. Also, the stunning indictment in the killings and shootings of those Minnesota lawmakers. Court documents say the gunman dressed as a police officer confessed to the crimes. And hikers turned heroes. How two people, including a former football player, took down an alleged arsonist on a popular trail in L.A. We're going to tell you about all this. Stay with us. We're back now with some scary moments outside of Beyoncé's concert in Atlanta. Several fans taken to the hospital after a stampede at a metro station. This just days after the superstar's unreleased music was stolen from her choreographer's car, I should say. NBC's Priscilla Thompson followed it all for us.
Red flashing lights inside Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter tour stop in Atlanta, spilling out into the streets for some fans.
The Escalade went out and everyone tumbled out.
As first responders raced to the scene of what police say was a stampede at the Metro rail station near Mercedes-Benz Stadium early Tuesday, just as thousands of fans were leaving the sold-out show.
That stampede was no joke. It was really, really scary.
9 people were injured, transit police say, most with cuts and scrapes, but one with a broken ankle. Police say a person began running and screaming, causing a stampede on the escalator. The escalator sped up and then stopped suddenly, sending riders crashing into one another.
I just looked up and I saw a wall of people just coming at me. You saw people falling down and no one was stopping.
Atlanta's Transit Authority says it's investigating. Another investigation is underway into who stole Queen Bee's unreleased music.
Someone broke into my car.
Newly released audio capturing the pop star's choreographer Christopher Grant's 911 call.
They stole my computers and everything.
The break-in happened last Tuesday. Grant told police he and a dancer pulled into a parking garage near Atlanta's Krog Street Market around 8 p.m. An hour later, they returned to find 2 suitcases missing.
They have my computers, and it's really, really important information in there. I work with someone who's of a high status.
Inside, Grant said, were Beyoncé's watermarked and unreleased music, along with footage plans and set lists for past and future shows.
How common is it for someone to have material like this just left in the car in a suitcase?
Not so common, but also they're on tour. Her shows are changing week to week, show by show. So the choreographer should have the materials.
Kelly Nicole Price co-wrote Beyoncé's Deja Vu and has spent decades in the industry. She says copyrights and password protection are all ways artists safeguard their music.
How likely is it that Beyoncé actually gets this material back?
I want to say it's very likely. As an artist, it is scary. It's your intellectual property. It feels like someone took your heart, but you can do it again, and probably better.
Police say the heist was caught on camera. No word on if it was targeted. An arrest warrant has been issued for a suspect who remains at large, and their identity is not yet available for release. The tour now rolling to the next town, as tonight a tyrant remains on the loose.
All right, Priscilla Thompson joins us tonight. Priscilla, has any of that unreleased music shown up online yet? And what could the penalty be for this type of crime?
Yeah, Tom, we have been scouring the internet today. No signs of it posting online just yet. As for the penalties, whoever did this is looking at a criminal penalty potentially for the theft, and then also a penalty for copyright infringement should they choose to post it, and that would look like a civil lawsuit. So we're talking about not only criminal consequences, but also financial consequences. And as Beyoncé fans will tell you, though, even when she appears to lose, she is winning. Despite all of this going on today, she was nominated for 2 Emmys for that Christmas halftime performance. So exciting news there. And Tom, I've got to ask you, if you were to stumble upon this unreleased music, what do? Do you listen to it or do you return it immediately?
No, I steal it and I start my recording career like I've always wanted to. No, I don't know. Yeah, you have to give it back. You don't want to get sued by Beyonce, definitely. Priscilla, we thank you for those updates.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Coming up on Top Story, the tense moment hikers in Los Angeles surrounded a suspected arsonist, the standoff plus what happened next, and a new study showing the use of weight loss drugs among kids. It's skyrocketing. What's behind the trend and what parents need to know before considering it? But first, Top Story's top moment, and it's a great one, a special surprise for a California grandmother. When this Amazon delivery driver disguised in a mask asked to use her bathroom, she let him in without a second thought, but it turns out that stranger was actually her grandson who has been gone for so long. She didn't recognize him until he took off the mask. Take a look.
Wait, are you taking him?
Her grandson, Anthony, returning after serving 2 years in the military. Anthony, we thank you for sharing that moment and for your service, of course. Stay with us. We're back in just a moment. We're back now with breaking news in the case of the man accused of carrying out a political assassination in Minnesota. A federal grand jury indicting Vance Boelter on 6 counts, including 2 counts for the murder of State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband. We're also learning new details in the shootings of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife that left them seriously wounded. NBC's Adrian Broaddus has more and joins us live tonight from Chicago. So, Adrian, what else did we learn in this indictment? A lot of new details.
Yeah, Tom, so many new details that investigators were revealing. Today, we learned prosecutors say Boelter told the Hortmans he was performing a welfare check. That's how he was able to gain access to the home of State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband. Authorities also releasing these chilling new photos of the alleged murder weapon and a 2-page confession note they say Boelter left behind in the getaway car. That note, they say, was addressed to the FBI director, Kash Patel. We also learned the Hoffmans, who were critically injured, used their bodies to shield their daughter from bullets. In a statement, their daughter Hope writes, quote, "I will forever coexist with the PTSD of watching my parents nearly shot dead and seeing my life flash before my eyes with a gun in my face." She also talked about how her parents pushed her out of the way. She said she had some scrapes and bruises, but overall, she was happy to see that Boelter would be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, Tom.
Yeah, and then, Adrian, while I have you, I do want to ask you, what do we know what's next for Boelter and this and any type of court interactions with him?
Yeah, he is expected to be back in court by the end of this week. That is according to federal prosecutors. He now faces capital charges, which could carry the death penalty. And, Tom, I do want to point out the acting U.S. attorney said he is, quote, confident that Boelter acted alone in this case. When it comes to the why he committed these alleged crimes, that is the harder question to answer, Tom.
Yeah, still unknown. He hasn't put any clues out yet on that. Okay, Adrian, we thank you. The Trump administration has fired 17 immigration court judges across 10 states in recent days, according to the union that represents them. It comes as President Trump is looking to speed up mass deportations of immigrants. Critics say the administration is looking to replace the civil servants with political loyalists. A union rep says 15 judges were fired on Friday without cause, 2 more on Monday. 103 judges have either been fired or voluntarily left since the Trump administration took office, that according to the AP reporting. Okay, Fire Festival, famously touted as a luxurious multi-day music event, then turned disaster, sold the rights to the troubled brand on eBay. That's right, eBay for $245,300. Interesting. Wow. The online sale lasted a week with 175 bids put up by 42 bidders. The final bid was accepted at 12:44 p.m. Eastern. The sale includes its IP brand, trademarks, and social media assets. Festival organizer Billy McFarland, who pleaded guilty to wire fraud and other related crimes stemming from the first festival, commented on the winning bid saying, quote, "Damn, it's so low." All right. A family of 5 and their dog are safe thanks to some fast-acting heroes after their sailboat was engulfed by flames near Jacksonville. Look at this. You can see the video showing the flames covering the boat and black smoke rising from the vessel. A father and son on a nearby boat rushed to their aid before fire rescue arrived and put out the blaze. The police say no one was injured. That's pretty incredible. And the nominees for this year's 77th Emmy Awards were announced today with some history-making nods. Apple TV, Severance, get this, leading nominations with 27 for its second season. HBO Max's The Penguin follows with 24 nods, and Hollywood legend Harrison Ford receiving his first Emmy nomination ever for the Apple TV series Shrinking. And then you just saw her there. Kathy Bates also became the oldest actress to be nominated. And SNL's Bowen Yang, we're a little behind here, but it's all right, the most Emmy-nominated Asian male performer ever. And the award show will be hosted by, who you just saw there, comedian Nate Bargatze on September 14th at the Los Angeles Peacock Theater. All right, look forward to that. Now to power and politics and the latest on the controversy over President Biden's use of an autopen. House Republicans are investigating Biden's cognitive state during his time in office, alleging he may not have been aware of what was being signed on his behalf using the device. But NBC News has learned that Congressman James Comer, the Kentucky Republican leading that investigation, has himself used a digital signature to sign some letters and subpoena notices connected to the probe. A spokeswoman for the House Oversight Committee, which Comer chairs, rejected that comparison. We're joined tonight by Ryan Nobles, our chief Capitol Hill correspondent, who reported out the story for NBC. Ryan, thanks for being here tonight. Walk us through how you were able to determine that these documents were signed with a digital signature for Comer. And what is the distinction here he's been making between what he did and what he alleges President Biden did? Because Republicans are really pushing back on this.
Yeah, they are, Tom. And to be clear, we're not alleging that Congressman Comer did anything wrong in this process, but we are pointing out the process in which this played out. And we noticed in the 16 letters that he sent out to targets of this investigation that are former Biden White House officials investigating this idea that somehow the use of an auto pen by the former president was inappropriate, that in these letters it was a digital signature that was affixed to every single one of them, meaning he did not sign them himself. Instead, it was a picture of his signature that was put in by a member of his staff. Now, Comer's office tells us that this is common practice. It was actually used as a result of some of the subpoena notices that went out during the January 6th Select Committee's investigation. And that is kind of the point here, that this is a widespread practice that's used both in Congress, in the legislative branch, and in the executive branch as well. The distinction that Comer's investigation is trying to demonstrate is that somehow it means that President Biden did not authorize the things that were signed in his name. That is, of course, something that the former president has flatly rejected. He has said that he knew and was and authorized every single decision that was made, that he ended up signing or having someone sign on his behalf. And at this point, the committee, the House Oversight Committee that's responsible for this, has yet to demonstrate specific evidence that would show that someone else made a decision that ultimately was authorized by a signature of Joe Biden's.
And then, Ryan, while we have you here, we do want to ask you, House Republicans have been insisting that Biden may not have been aware or making the final calls on clemency during the presidency. Have they presented any evidence for that so far?
That is what they say they are in search of when I asked specific questions about the status of this investigation. That's why they say they are bringing in all these former Biden White House officials to ask very specific questions about when decisions were made and then when the call was made to use some version of an auto pen or a signature that wasn't directly by the president's hand himself. At this point, if they have found that evidence, if something has come up during one of these interviews that would allude to that, they have yet to present it. They say they're still in the early stages of this investigation, but ultimately the premise that they're working under is that this autopen, which we should point out was really first presented by the current president, Donald Trump, as an issue, is going to lead them to that ultimate conclusion, but it's clear they haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, Ryan Noble, it's always great to have you on Top Story. Ryan, we thank you for that. Hikers in Los Angeles catching a tense moment on video as they surrounded a man who they say started a fire on a popular hiking trail, keeping him there until police and firefighters arrived on the scene. NBC's Stephen Romo has the video and the backstory on this one.
This dude just started the fire.
Dramatic video shows the moment Los Angeles hikers confront an alleged arsonist on a popular trail.
Don't let him leave.
The instant this tree started burning, not captured on video, but the hikers asked the man on camera if he started it.
He started that fire? You just came from over there. We just saw you.
You're right.
Oh.
And yeah. You have the warrant for the murder, right?
Devon DeMarco capturing the video as Scott Mitchell, who happens to be a former football player, sprinted to chase the man down Runyon Canyon.
Devon sees this guy coming from the grassy area. Less than 15 seconds later, Devon is like, that tree is on fire. Now, mind you, it's like a 20, 30-foot tree fully engulfed in flames.
The potential danger very real, with the trail one of LA's most popular, seeing an estimated 2 million visitors per year and bordering several homes. Soon, other hikers calling 911. The group says they managed to hold the man there for more than an hour until police arrived and arrested him. He's been booked on one count of arson.
What the You should be hospitalized.
Fire trucks rushing to that scene Sunday, and a helicopter dousing those flames. This incident comes with fire anxiety high across Los Angeles right now. After the catastrophic blazes ripped through the city earlier this year, those fires killed dozens of people, destroyed thousands of homes and businesses, and caused an estimated $250 billion worth of damage.
We don't need another repeat of what we had in January. It was just PTSD, anger, and kind of like, we can't let this guy get away.
According to California state fire officials, 10 to 15% of wildfires are the result of arson.
We hate to report, and we are scared to report. That is a new fire that is burning in the Hollywood Hills. This one is just off of Runyon Canyon.
And especially in Runyon Canyon, left unchecked, a fire can quickly turn into a massive blaze, like this one earlier this year that happened within just a few days of the city's other catastrophic fires. A fate avoided in this instance, thanks in part to these hikers sprinting into action.
The fire was so big that it literally could have caught the rest of the brush and everything else that was up there. The big brush hill leading up to the homes on the top of the hill. Like it could have been really bad.
Stephen Romo, NBC News.
All right, time now for Top Stories Health Check. A new study finding the use of weight loss drugs in kids has skyrocketed. Take a look at this. The study found that prescribing GLP-1s for weight management in kids aged 8 to 17 increased 65% after the American Academy of Pediatrics issued guidelines recommending them 2.5 years ago. To help us understand what this all means, I want to bring in Dr. Tanya Altman. She's a pediatrician and founder of Calabasas Pediatrics Wellness Center. Doctor, thanks so much for joining Top Story tonight. Obviously, this was a recommendation by trusted pediatricians, but how young is too young for kids to go on these drugs?
Hi, Tom. Thank you for having me on. I mean, I think it's really a case-by-case basis. The youngest in my practice is 9, but we look at other factors besides just their weight. Do they have type 2 diabetes? Are they headed to that, type 2 diabetes based on their labs? Do they have fatty liver, high blood pressure, high cholesterol? Many of these kids have already been working with a dietitian and an exercise instructor for a long time, and we've been talking to them and really working with the family to try to get them to lose weight, and nothing's working. So it takes this team approach, and now we have this other tool, which is a shot. And let me just tell you that kids don't always want weekly shots too. So they have to be motivated as well to add this into the regimen.
What are the concerns about putting kids this young? I mean, you just mentioned 9 years old. You're obviously a trained professional. What is the concern about getting kids on these drugs so young? Or maybe there aren't concerns. But I mean, as a parent, I got to tell you, it sort of stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have a child with obesity and other medical issues to often really understand why sometimes this medication is needed. But I have to say that I have seen such a great improvement in my kids. Like, for example, think about a child who's in school and they're constantly 24/7 thinking about food and their next meal, and they're eating a cafeteria tray size for lunch as opposed to regular portion sizes. So we start them on the medication, and then it shrinks down to they're eating normal portion sizes. We're teaching them about healthy eating. They're able to focus on their math and their reading and their exercises and their friends and have a more normal, healthy lifestyle. So I think in the long run, this is going to be a great tool to really help decrease all of those medical complications we often see from obesity, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol issues.
But she just said it there, in the long run. Does this mean they're going to be on these drugs their entire life?
So that's a great question. And, you know, it is still new, so I think we don't know. A lot of the experts, when I go to these meetings, you know, there are some kids where we see and we hope that this can sort of reset their satiety center, because the medication works by not only slowing down your gut motility so you stay fuller longer, but it also helps with the insulin and blood sugar, keeping them more stabilized in your body. But it also helps reset that satiety center in your brain so you're not constantly thinking about food. And in my practice, that's often been one of the most surprising benefits, that the kids come to me and they say, wow, Dr. Tanya, I actually can now focus on my schoolwork. I can think about other things. I'm not always wondering when my next meal is going to be there.
Dr. Tanya, thank you. You're very, very insightful into this topic, which I think a lot of people are going to be talking about. We're back now with Top Stories Global Watch and a check on international headlines. Hungary, India, and Poland officially completed their first crewed missions to the International Space Station. Video showing the 4-person crew inside a SpaceX capsule splashing down in Southern California waters and taking their first steps back on Earth. The aerospace company Axiom launched the mission, the first time the 3 nations sent astronauts to the ISS. They were joined by American astronaut Peggy Whitson, the mission commander who holds the record for cumulative days in space at 675. And a typhoon bringing heavy rain and flooding near Japan's Mount Fuji. Look at this. Typhoon Neri turning streets into rivers and disrupting traffic in a town near the famous peak. The storm made landfall as a low-pressure system, dumping 6 inches of rain in 24 hours. The system is the first tropical storm to hit the region since 2016. A stolen ancient Roman mosaic was returned to Pompeii more than 80 years after it was stolen by a Nazi officer during World War II. The priceless work, depicting a couple in bed, dates as far back as the 1st century BC. During World War II, a German Nazi officer stationed in Italy took the piece, gifting it to a civilian who kept it until his death. His heirs contacted Italian authorities, arranging the return. The mosaic is set to be displayed alongside items recovered from the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in the ancient city. Thank you for watching. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.